Guys. So, you guys know that I go through all of the internet, and I found a very interesting story about the person who sort of inspired Edward Norton's character in American History X, had a history of being a neo bad guy, if you know what I mean, and how he has now changed his life around due to a DNA discovery. So, I am going to start the uh, article. I just wanted to kind of give that context and also read the headline to you before I put it on screen because it has a bunch of scenes from American History X, and I don't know that YouTube would be too happy with American History X. So, a person who inspired Edward Norton's very terrible character in American History X has revealed that he is now an observant Jew after turning his life around, according to discovering his heritage through DNA testing. Frank Mink 48 became a leader of a violent ultra-right group in the early 1990s, torturing enemies who stood in the way of his attempt to foment a bad a bunch of a race war, basically. Intensely anti-Semitic and flaunting a flaming swastika tattoo on his neck, he railed against what he called, quote, "Zionist occupation government," end quote, and he believed that Jewish people were the root of all evil. In 1998's American History X, Norton's Derek Vineyard character was based in part on Mink's road to redemption as he began to ditch his racist views after kindling friendships with inmates in black inmates in prison. But now Mink has revealed to the Post an astonishing twist. He is Jewish. Long after quitting his, terrible, terrible group of people that he was, hanging out with and attempting to make amends for his he took a 23andMe test and discovered that he has Jewish ancestry, and he has now embraced his heritage. He was prompted to take the test by a chance remark from a friend that said he, quote, "could be Jewish or perhaps looked Jewish," which I don't know how one does do that, but okay. "I just wanted to see if it was true. I wanted to see if it was real," Mink said. "I found out by a beautiful gift from God that I was Jewish through DNA. The test showed his ancestry composed as 2.4% Ashkenazi Jewish." Okay, that's a really small percent. The small proportion belied its importance. His mother's maternal great-great-grandmother, Elizabeth Zellman Rementer, was Jewish, meaning that according to the tradition of matrilineal or basically Judaism is passed through maternal lines. So if you had, a Jewish boy and a Gentile girl marry, even if she converted, I don't know how that works. Actually, I don't know enough to speak on it, to be honest, but I do believe that that is how that goes. Though not all Jewish scholars would accept that definition, as many do, said Meek has enthusiastically embraced his Judaism. He prays 3 times a day, wearing a tallit and tefillin of observant Jews, attends synagogue, goes to 3 Torah study classes a week, and keeps kosher. He grew up Irish Catholic in Southwest Philadelphia with his mother and abusive stepfather, surrounded by African American families. Escaping his fractured home life at his aunt and uncle's farm near Lancaster, PA, in the summer of 1988, the 13-year-old was greeted by his neo-Nazi cousin. Of course, because of course. Hey guys, so you guys know that I am always looking for all of the news, and I found this really interesting article about the real life person who inspired Edward Norton's character from American History X, and kind of his road to redemption and making amends for his past wrongdoings and beliefs. And a lot of the article is full of things that I'm not sure that uh, Facebook or YouTube or any of the places would like me to show. So I am going to read it to you, but a lot of the first time that the New York Post can put things together and actually have the right video clips for stuff, they're showing American History X, which is not the most nonviolent and or YouTube friendly movie that we can show. So the neo-Nazi who inspired Edward Norton's skinhead character in American History X has revealed he is now an observant Jew after turning his life around and discovering his heritage through DNA testing. Frank Mink, and I think I can show this a little bit. So I will be going on and off screen at the parts where, American History X is being shown. Frank Frank Mink, 28 or 48, sorry, became the leader of an ultra-violent right-wing group during the 1990s, torturing enemies who stood in the way of his attempt to foment a race war. Intensely anti-Semitic and flaunting a swastika tattooed to his neck, he railed against what he believed were all of the conspiracy theories. He was like, "Nah, nope, this countries being taken over and everything else, all the things that you hear about from those lovely people that generally stand outside of Walmart. In 1998's American History X, Norton's Derek Vineyard character was based in part on Mink's road to redemption as he began to ditch his, racist views after kindling friendships with black inmates in prison. Now, Mink has revealed to the Post an astonishing twist. He is actually Jewish. Long after quitting neo Nazism and attempting to make amends for his past, he took a 23andMe and discovered that he does indeed have Jewish ancestry and has now embraced his heritage. Um, what prompted this testing? Well, apparently one of his friends said he looked Jewish. Now, how one looks, just I have my own thoughts about why you shouldn't give companies your DNA, but apparently he is. Now, here's where I have a little bit of an issue of it. His testing showed his ancestral composition was 2.4% Ashkenazi Jewish. Now, the small proportion is belying its importance according to the article. His mother's grand great-grandmother, Elizabeth Zelman Remeter, was Jewish, meaning that according to the tradition of the matrilineal, descent, he is too. Now, apparently, according to the article, not all, Jewish people agree with the sort of blood and matrilineal, giving of Jewishness. Look, I am not I'm not an expert. I am simply reading what the article says and trying to avoid showing all of American history X with just all the, bendy crosses just everywhere on the YouTubes. But apparently there are schisms in who accepts, well, your great-great-grandmother was so you can technically become or are Jewish. But he has enthusiastically embraced his Judaism. Now I can put the screen back up. He prays 3 times a day wearing a tallit and a tefillin, and I am very sorry if I mispronounce these incorrectly. I probably did. Of observant Jews, attends synagogue, goes to Torah 3 times a week, and keeps kosher. He grew up in an Irish Catholic enclave in West Philadelphia with his mother and abusive stepfather, surrounded by different, families of different cultural backgrounds. But he ran away or was sent to his aunt and uncle's farm at the age of 13 near Lancaster in the summer of 1988. And he became fast friends with his cousin, who was a very big fan of a certain struggling Austrian painter. He, in fact, had a mural of this Austrian painter in his room. Meek feared drugs and diverse people, and his cousin's, views and the way he was talking sort of, quote, he said, "justified all my fears," he said. After returning home, he traveled the US meeting prominent, uh, people like David Duke. Well, there you go. I would not say that I would ever name drop that. "I grabbed onto this information that was being fed to me," he said. "I wanted to make this movement bigger." Aged 15, he'd already joined and been booted from you know, when you are booted from the triple K, maybe it's you. Before deciding to join or form his own group with his cousin called Strike Force. Mink used the Bible to preach hate, quote, just like Hamas does with the Quran, and started his own public access cable TV show in Springfield, Illinois called The Reich, full of all sorts of the isms and the phobias. Strike Force particularly despised the anti fascist Sharp group. So it was skinheads against racial prejudice. Okie dokie. Mink, who had, quote, sharp-eyed killer tattooed inside his lower lip, because, you don't wanna announce that, invited a member of the Sharp group to a party on Christmas Eve, 1992, then held him captive and tortured him. So we kidnapped him, used firearms, we had guns and sheep. We had him stay in the apartment and tortured him for hours with no remorse, no empathy, no nothing, he recalled. Aged 17, Mink was sentenced to 3 years for aggravated kidnapping in the custody of Illinois Department of Corrections. He quickly became part of a crew of, well, they have friends everywhere, the Aryans. But unexpectedly, he bonded with 2 black inmates nicknamed Jello and G over games of football and cards in prison and began a slow journey out of his, love for certain Austrian painters, which helped inspire Norton's character. He got out of prison just over a year and still went to some of those, rallies where he scoffed at their, isms and phobias against African American people, but not against, their views on Jewish people. He kept thinking, well, I would hear them say all, people of certain groups were this way and thinking that's not true, but he still had anti-Semitism in his heart, I guess. In 1994, jobless and drunk at just 19, he was offered work at an antique store in Cherry Hill. Let's see. New Jersey by its owner, Keith Brookstein, even though Brookstein was Jewish. Quote, "Did you tell him about the, bendy cross thing right here on my neck? I mean, did you tell him?" Mink tentatively asked his friend who got him the job. His friend said, "Keith doesn't give a rat's behind what you believe, just don't break his furniture," he replied. Brookstein's kindness and compassion, willingness to forgive resonated deeply with Mink. Eventually, while on a walk, he thought about his anti-Semitism. Who are you to judge the world? You're a effing criminal and a drunk. That was the day I was like, I'm done, I'm out. The next morning, for the first time in years, Mink didn't shave his head. Later, he had the tattoo on his neck and the word skinhead on his knuckle removed. Again, probably good for the job finding thing and also your soul. Mink has turned into an active campaigner against, you know, all of the neo Austrian painterism and embrace with but it is his embrace with Judaism which he said has meant the most to him. He credits with his faith with helping him in the wake of the darkest period of his life. In 2019, Mink went into recovery in Los Angeles, California for alcohol and drug abuse after the loss of his 19-year-old son, Josh, the death of his mother, Thomasine, and the breakdown of his marriage, all in the space of 5 years. There, he met his sponsor, a Jewish man he nicknamed his recovery rabbi, who helped him find his faith and sobriety. It was a lot of work. Mink recalled, in recovery, it says, find the God of your understanding. And that's when I was like, I'm really going to check into this. And unfortunately, his son did pass away, and it looks like a lot of things happened in a very short period of time. The thing I loved about Judaism is that it says, love the Lord your God, and that you don't need to force your God on nobody else. I want to try and build this relationship with God. Meek said his faith granted him humbleness and humility that enabled him to stand for others. He added, on my morning prayer walk, I always keep the word stay. Stay is an acronym for stop thinking about yourself. He also continues to call his quote recovery rabbi and quote every morning at 8 a.m. I only do these things not I only do these things not to just seem like a part of the Jews, he explained. Okay. I do it because it keeps God at the forefront of my mind. It's his world, not mine. In 2020, he testified to Congress about the attempts for, people with isms and phobias to infiltrate police forces. He is hoping to now turn the full story of his life into a movie, which would be a sequel of a kind to American History X, and is in talks with director Sam French, who was the Oscar-nominated um, director, I guess, for the short film Bukashi Boys in 2013. It will have a simple message at its core: love is more powerful than hate. And I know I had to kind of dance around a lot of words in this, but it was something I didn't even know that American History X was based on anyone real. And what an interesting journey to have been fed a certain ideology or belief set, to have that belief set challenged, still want to cling to it a little bit, and then have that ripped away too, and then to turn to, you know, a spirituality or a faith that you would have scorned and become very devout after dealing with a lot of struggles. So I thought that was an interesting story, especially with redemption and all the things that are going on right now. And it's definitely not one that's more newsy news appropriate. And I just figured if it intrigued me, it would intrigue you all. The original link, it is from the New York Post, so you guys can read it in full without all of my, you know, YouTube-friendly redaction actions. But I just thought, what an interesting and wonderful story of redemption when we're kind of struggling a bunch to find people who wanna take an actual look at something they may have done wrong and really deeply atone for it and rethink their situations. So, while I may not ever watch the movie, I definitely applaud him for getting, all through his struggles and finding something new that works for him. So there you go. I hope you have a lovely rest of your Friday. I know this is kind of an odd, story, but it really is. I do love that he took ownership of a lot of the dumbness that he did, and he is trying to make amends. He is trying to be a better human, and that's really interesting, and I also, like I said, didn't know that it was based on a real person. So, who knew? All the things. Have a lovely rest of your day and get out, have some fun if it's nice weather. Say something nice to yourself and say something nice to someone else because, this world is full of insanity and maybe your compliment could be something that starts someone on a change to a more positive life. You never know. Or just make them have a less crappy day. Doesn't have to be that profound. Have a lovely day, guys.